over all of these years of my whole life.
I'm always noticing that like therapy is going back to the arts. Because not one have I heard like here's a math therapy class, here's a quantum physics therapy class. What's going on, everyone? You're watching Emeroy TV, the place to be to move, groove, and grow. And this is a special podcast. It might not be just on Emeroy TV. It might also be on Vision Paradox TV. It might be on the podcast as well. And if you didn't know I had a podcast, what's wrong with you? Go check it out on Spotify right now. So I'm on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere that you can listen to podcasts. Just look up Emeroy Bernardo or Move, Groove, and Grow. Not Emeroy TV because it's not TV. So today we have an amazing guest. We actually connected. We've danced on a couple of projects, but we really got to connect on one of the things she's working on, which is about dance movement therapy. I have the amazing Vicki Mae Alvarez. Okay, and she's had the chance to dance with Academy of Villains, competing and performing on So You Think You Can Dance, America's Got Talent, and Hip Hop International. If you guys don't know what HHI is, it's like the Olympics of hip hop, and it's like what 2 weeks, like just to qualify for US and then the Worlds. Yeah, it's a two week thing, and not only that, what really amazed me to bring her onto this is the work that she's doing with other people. She's the current owner of a company called Let's Dance It Out, which is a dance movement program for adults with special needs. So, with that, welcome Vicki Mae Alvarez to the podcast. Yay! I need a soundboard. Okay, so I did a quick intro, but let's give the audience a little bit about your origin story, about yourself, your social security. No, not about yourself.
A little too much.
Yourself, how you got into dance, and then how you got into the whole dance therapy space.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm from San Francisco. I have been dancing pretty much since I was 5 years old, and I've always had a passion for dance. Was on a bunch of different dance companies, but it wasn't until I had a major injury. I had fractured my kneecap on Academy of Villains when we were on America's Got Talent.
You did it? Was it in the middle of performance?
It was during a rehearsal. Yeah.
Shit.
So
did you dance with it?
I did not. No, I couldn't walk after that.
Wait, was it part of like the recap? Like, oh no, our dancers.
Exactly. Yeah. It was like, we've lost a dancer. What are we gonna do? Crazy sob story.
Oh God, TV.
Yeah. So, I had that injury and I realized, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna have this body forever. What if I can't dance my entire life? So it really made me reflect and think about how I can create something sustainable for me, for my future as well. And so that's when I was thinking about physical therapy, and I got into kinesiology, and I actually went to Cal State Northridge as a kinesiology major.
Mm-hmm.
But Paula Thompson, who teaches there, also clinical psychologist, recommended that if I was interested in dance movement therapy, because I had just found out about it at that time, to major in psychology and minor in dance. Really? And so, yeah, I ended up doing that. I was still taking all the dance classes there, so very active in that. And yeah, so then I graduated and ended up finding dance movement therapy programs across the country. Mm-hmm. And I just decided to check those out, and Pratt Institute was something that I was interested in. It's an art school. So I was really surprised to see a dance movement therapy program there, in something that's school, so clinically based in the art school. But that's actually what drew me a lot more to that school. There's other programs where it's more like heavy with the science, etc. But for this program, it really felt like something that I really wanted to do because of the fact that it had dance as an art there. Yeah. So that's pretty much how I got to that.
Let's elaborate on the whole thing of dance movement therapy, because I feel like as we were talking about this prior, is that therapy is entering a kind of, it's in limbo where it's it's being talked about where it's okay to do it, but there's still the older generation where I feel like it's still stigmatized. Mm-hmm. It's in that weird space, and then now even to the idea of dance therapy, which is I think, very much different from traditional therapy. Like,
Yes.
what I guess the first thing, like, what is the what is the benefit of dance movement therapy versus traditional therapy?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think that a lot of people, when they even hear the word therapy or counseling, they automatically believe like there's something wrong with me,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate that society constructs it like that in all these years. But that's also another reason why I love dance therapy, is because it's this kind of alternate, this other sort of expressive art therapy.
Yeah.
So basically, the difference between that dance therapy and like traditional therapy
Yeah.
would be that dance therapy is mostly nonverbal. And in regular therapy, it's talk therapy. You know, you're sitting there talking to your therapist about
Yeah.
all of the things you need to process, etc. But with dance therapy, you're more so using your body and movement,
Mhm.
and then from there on, whatever it is that your therapist helps you, um, guides you through, then you can then process that yourself, whatever your experience was in the session.
Huh. Do you feel like it's? Well, I feel like it's sometimes hard to talk about things,
Mm-hmm.
because there's like, there's that resistance, and that means you have. But does that come up with that kind of resistance? When it comes time to move.
Yes, I will. In my experience, it's also, I mean, even when I tell people I'm a dance movement therapist, or in training, it's they start to get a little intimidated because of the word dance, and they're like, oh, so does that mean I have to dance? Do you teach choreography? Like,
Oh wow!
what's
Yeah.
what's the session gonna look like? Is it like teaching a class? But it's not like that at all. Whatever comes out of the session is your authentic movement.
Mm.
And so yes, there has been a lot of instances where resistance is present because of the fact that there's so much stored in our bodies, and in a way, it's actually even more vulnerable to feel that inside than to talk about it.
It's true. I agree.
Yeah, and I with my last internship, I worked with adolescents, teenagers with dual diagnosis, substance addiction,
Wow.
and mental health, and it was quite challenging working with that population. Extremely grateful for the opportunity, and I loved it actually. But yeah, it was challenging because they for this population, substance was something that they used to cope, and on for all of the experiences and trauma that they've experienced. And when you're using a substance, you're basically like covering up what's really there, right? It's like
Blanking it, yeah.
it's like a band-aid in a sense, where you're trying to mask that, and
Yeah, it doesn't really handle the actual cancer, so to speak.
yeah. So you're not dealing quite with the issue at hand.
Yeah.
And so with dance therapy, it's all about being in the body, and they're so used to not being in the body.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
And so that can be quite difficult. But I have seen a lot of progress, and I've seen a lot of change. And it's so rewarding seeing that. And I actually see a dance movement therapist myself.
that's cool. Like, so you do, it's not just group. I automatically thought it was group sessions, because normally, like, dancing, from our experience, has always been a group setting. I didn't even think of like one-on-ones.
Yes, yeah. And I was curious about that too, because I was more so leading groups than leading in like individual sessions.
Yeah.
So that actually was what sparked me to be like, what, maybe I should go see a dance movement therapist too, so I can experience that.
I want to try this
Right?
too.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know, there's so much that happens in those sessions.
Yeah, because like one thing I really like that you said, because it's like you feeling it in your body. Because one thing I love saying is, like, your body is the your the living subconscious, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't have to think about our heart breathing, our subconscious does
Exactly.
it. don't have to think about the blood flowing. Our subconscious just does it,
Right.
and then a lot of the things that we carry from, I don't know, trauma and all that stuff, is just is carried throughout the body, and then just from a lot of people who talk spiritually, but I've also talked from to like therapists, it manifests one way or
Yes.
another. So like that's why it intrigued me, like the whole movement, because it's, you know, one thing to talk, but it's I feel like that's also us consciously talking about it, but then to take that part of the brain away and just moving it,
Hmm.
I think that's like I think the gatekeeper is always our like our conscious mind versus the subconscious mind,
Yes.
because we're
Yeah.
always judging ourselves in a sense.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because Trudy Shoup, she's like one of the pioneers of dance movement therapy, said your body is a blabbermouth.
Ha.
And I see that all the time. It's like you can't, like, you can lie and you can use your words to
Yeah.
pretend something or be in
Sociopaths.
denial, whatever it is. But like your body can't lie. Like your body's gonna do what it does.
Yeah. Body language and everything.
Yes, exactly. And the just as much as there's verbal communication, there's so much in the nonverbal.
Yeah.
I think I read it somewhere that your conversations are like 20% verbal
Verbal.
and 80% nonverbal, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, like that's
Actually had
so much.
I had a huge debate on someone online, because one of my popular videos is called "How to Be an Active Listener."
Yes, yeah.
And then she's like, "No, like wrong. This whole video is wrong. Most of your talking is done verbally."
Uh-huh.
But then I replied, saying that try saying "I love you" in an angry tone and saying no, versus saying yes in a happy tone.
Mm-hmm.
And then it lands differently.
Completely.
So, because I remember with my ex, but one of the things, just bringing your past experiences, it's like I would say like, yeah, but I did it because I love you, and it's different.
Your body's saying something else.
Body and tone.
Yeah.
Versus that's why, like, I like that, because getting into our bodies and out of our heads,
right,
and I think that's something that I feel like we knew a long time ago as humans, but then we got into this construct that not to trust our bodies, to stuff down our feelings. And now I feel like we're coming into a more aware state of mind.
Yes.
I feel like in the next 10, 20, 30 years, it's going to be self-care is going to be very important. Mental health is going to be very important. I feel like it's, despite the crazy political climate right now, I feel like in the grand scheme of things, human beings are being louder in terms of trying to make good change.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about quickly is the whole stigma on therapy or just mental health in general, because I mean, when we were younger, like we're only 26, 23.
Yeah.
When we were younger, like we didn't even think about that. We just like it just stuffed it down and just kept going. Maybe because I don't know if you had immigrant parents. I had immigrant parents. They're like, you're sick, go to school.
Exactly. Yeah. Put some Vicks on. Like
put some Vicks on.
You're good. Yeah.
So, but what I'm really fascinated now, not just like our generation, but even the younger kids are more aware about mental health and all that stuff. Like, what are your thoughts to the people who try to stigmatize? What are your thoughts around the stigmatization, if that's the word, on mental health and therapy, and what do you think our projections are, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it's like it has this negative connotation that if you go to therapy, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about, like, I'm actually about to work on my thesis.
Ooh.
I know it's gonna be some work, but I've really been thinking about how trauma can move through through the generations of your family.
Oh.
Transgenerationally, and affect like an individual.
Okay.
Even if it was their ancestors who had to endure whatever that was from their original country.
Yeah.
And I mean, speaking as like my mom and my dad were immigrants as well, so I'm really taking a look at that and seeing how how and like why like that's been such an issue to be like we're just gonna suppress all of our feelings and like we don't talk about this, right?
Yeah.
And not to say that we're, you know, like, I mean, I feel like Filipinos especially like are, you know, have so much strength built up because of the fact that we've had to bounce back.
We have a lot of
And
perseverance.
exactly,
Yeah.
yes. Um, and resilience too, you know, it's just all of this. So yeah, I think it is interesting. I think that the concept or like the construct of therapy being like a negative connotation or a negative thing is that it comes from from past generations. And also, I mean, society's constantly telling us to just like keep working, and especially in America where it's like we don't get like the breaks and vacations that we need, and it's terrible. But I mean, a lot of the time we can't really control that, right? So what do we do to take control of our lives? And I feel like therapy is something that you can do, like amidst all of the chaos and, you know, sadness and cruelty in this world. Like, how can you still find ways to have joy, and to live your life, like, and to have this vitality, you know?
I mean, that's tough because like I almost feel like because there's this dream or that's sold that like you're supposed to, if you earn the money and all that stuff, that's where the joy happens.
Exactly.
But then in that they actually lose a lot of themselves because they're chasing a dream that's maybe not meant for them.
Totally, not even there. It's the American dream, right?
The American
I've
dream.
I've been talking about that so much lately, and like
really
with my mom, like she's so adamant about me like
getting a house, pick a fence.
Yeah, and like settling down and like having all of this, and it's like, yeah, I know you want, you know, more grandkids. At this point, it's like I'm focusing on like my own mental health, and something that was interesting to me that one of my professors had told me about, like something that her like she went through with a client was like them feeling that um, they were sad and they felt this like depression, but knew for some reason it wasn't theirs. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting.
Wow.
And so that's what really like got me to be like, wait, where did this come from, right? Like ancestors, like the past generations, like all of these.
They felt that's really some next level self-awareness because they knew they knew it was a projection.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So most of the time people just take it and then they own it like it's theirs.
Right. Yeah. And so I mean, just even that, like, and to go to therapy and to find some insight about yourself, like there are so many things you can talk about in therapy, like literally relationships, family, like work, school, you know, all of these things. We all go through grief, like we all go through sadness, we all go through joy, you know, all of these things just as much as whatever. There's a spectrum of emotions that we're feeling, and for me, my personal experience is that therapy has really helped me, even in the days that I don't want to go. Actually, are the days that I find the most impactful. And I think that's just like true to, I don't know. I think human nature is to be like, if something's going wrong, you don't want to talk about it. If you're feeling sad, you don't like. Subconsciously, like your mind like pushes it to the back.
You kind of just isolate and shut down.
Yeah.
But that's where it really matters. Yeah,
exactly.
I feel that because, and one thing I always say, because I if it wasn't for a huge variety of therapies I tried, like one thing I always say is like therapy only works if you're willing to put in the work.
Oh, 100%.
Because like I've always heard people, not always, I don't want to say it like that, but like I've heard opinions of like saying no, therapy doesn't work, or like first off, have you tried it? Second, how serious did you take it?
Right.
Because
and third, which modality did you use? Because if it's verbal therapy, not everybody likes to talk. Some people are mute. Like some people can't talk.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
It's just like, you know, and that's what I love about dance therapy is that it's one of the many options that we have now. There's art therapy, drama therapy, music therapy.
Yeah.
You know, like all, like the list goes on. But it's just this other way to express yourself. And not everybody learns the same is something that I've noticed over all of these years in my whole life.
I'm almost noticing that like therapy is going back to the arts. Because not one have I heard like here's a math therapy class, here's a quantum physics therapy class. I mean,
Yeah, there's
is there
chemistry therapy.
Chemistry therapy fucking blow shit up. Breaking Bad style.
Sublimation, that's a good one though. Actually, I mean, it's
what's sublimation?
It's like when you have a lot. I don't know whatever angst or intense feelings that you're having, you use that and or you use what is it? I'm like trying to figure out how to say this. I'm gonna start over with that. Sublimation is basically whatever intense emotions that you're feeling, using some sort of outlet to express that in a healthy manner.
Okay, so not breaking stuff.
You can. Okay. I mean, if that's healthy, if you're in a room, have you heard of like Wreck-It rooms?
Wreck-It rooms, yeah.
That's sublimation right there. You're so angry, you need to do something, and that's movement.
You know what?
That is movement.
That's one thing that fascinated me because I saw that and I saw like a two different tests. I think it was in Brain Games or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh no, it was a different YouTube original. Okay. They showed the difference of someone who got really angry. They were put into the rage room, and then they're put into another group. Split test group, they just sat there and thought.
Yeah.
And then they found out the people that were angry were more likely to be more violent.
Oh.
This was like a very small,
study. Yeah,
small
experiment.
study. It was an experiment because for entertainment, but it was interesting because they essentially wrote like the synopsis was like they wrote an essay, but then someone from the other like party, so to speak, criticized it, and then shared there was like if you're a feminist, the antagonist was misogynist and conservative or liberal, whatever to trigger you, to get you mad, and then whatever test you were in, you had to sit there for 20 minutes, or you got to break stuff, and then once you came back from that relief, you had the option to electrocute him.
Oh wow!
And then they found out the people that were in the break room were more likely to electrocute him, and he wasn't really getting electrocuted, but they had soundboards to make it seem like he was getting hurt.
Yeah. So
and then they're like, oh yeah, like give it some more, like you had the option of like 1 for a little pain, 10 for a lot, and they're going 7, 8, 9, and the other one was like, nah, he has like the people who are quiet were like, nah, he has his own opinions. I respect that.
Interesting.
So it's like so that's what fascinates me, like, and that's where I'm like mixed emotions about. My glasses. I'm mixed emotions about like break rooms because it's like it's a good temporary relief, and I know that feeling because it feels so good to punch stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm also well aware from like my own experience of when I've let myself go down that path of continual like that easy path of just punching stuff. It's like it brings out more aggression.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I think what's important though is that you become aware of what's happening, because a lot of the time when we're upset or have this reaction, we don't think about it, right? We just do.
Yeah.
And in that case, I've been working with some of the populations that I have. If I notice that there's something that they need to get out of their body, one really common thing is to throw ice. And because it's it's not going to hurt anybody, you can throw it at the wall, and you can have that impact.
You feel that impact, yeah.
But instead of just like blindly throwing it, what I'll do is I'll have them really think about like what is this representing? What am I getting rid of? What am I throwing out of my system that no longer serves me?
Got it.
And then when you go into that, it's like you start, because psychologically you're like, well, I'm processing like what is it exactly that I was upset about or angry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that because now there's intent. There's like a focus on the energy versus like blind rage.
Exactly.
Which because like for me, like I went through like I had to do 52 weeks of anger management. So like that honestly, like I loved that program because it was humbling because like I went into situations like where people did have it worse, but it was also like it was good learning from their experiences and the tools that I learned from there. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like that's I love that there's uh, you're putting the energy towards something with intent and instead of uh, hurting someone. So, shit. Um,
And that takes a lot of work to do, especially like I do want to say like that's it's not easy to just stop and be like, okay, why am I mad, who's making me angry right now, right? Like,
oh,
but that's what breath and all of that is, and meditation and
yes, I was
yoga
actually do you
comes
meditate,
into
do you guys practice meditation
yeah, that's so also I mean like each dance therapy session um, is unique. So depending on, I mean, as the dance therapist, you'll look at the situation, like where this client is from, or like what they're coming to treatment for, and based on that, you'll have certain, maybe there's like certain objectives that you have, and so I mean, maybe if there's somebody who's constantly suffering from anxiety and they have a lot of thoughts that are just spinning and constantly going, meditation is so great for that.
Really?
Because it helps you to stay present and to be aware of your thoughts like so clearly, to see them and notice like they notice it without any judgment as well.
Yeah, I was about to say like because I can definitely relate to that like in terms of like noticing the thoughts and then like wanting to react.
Yes. Yeah. And your thoughts affect your feelings, right? So it just as much as like your feelings also affect your thoughts, and so it's just like if you can conquer that, like knowing and not adding any judgment to any of the thoughts that you have, then you can be like, well, that's not a problem. Like I don't need to worry about it as much, and so then it helps to self regulate and with the bodies. But yeah, I mean, meditation can be used, like certain yoga poses can be used.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm loving yoga. I just used to just do it for the stretching benefits, but then now I get the breathing part. I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah,
it's actually feels like my body feels good, but now when I actually do the breathing properly, like there's a certain lightness.
Yes,
I feel throughout the whole thing. It's yeah, like and I love this because you're probably the well, since I started doing this again, you're like the second person to say like, oh, I meditate because it helps out. It's like I love how meditation is becoming like super mainstream.
Yeah.
Because I mean I've been preaching it to my dance company, family business, since 2012, and like before every rehearsal, we had to meditate.
Really?
Yeah, because like it was always a requirement. Because it was always like to leave everything out, to be present, to kind of relax you from the stressful day. It was only 5 minutes, and it was sometimes me guiding it, or sometimes just like waterfalls, some white noise, and then they would always be like I loved hearing them say like, "Oh, Emeroy, I'm looking forward to meditation today," like, "Oh, that I needed that," and because it's that a nice little quiet time for yourself.
Yeah.
For some, and it's also like one of my favorite things because I was doing it to help um, learn how to sit with what makes my anger reactive. And then I noticed, like for me, what lessons I learned from it is you learn to sit with it and not react, and then let it go. So then that's what I think is like the most like was good because it's very like metaphorical to the breath because it comes and it goes.
Oh yes.
And then
I love that, yeah.
And like very much, I always say like at every rehearsal, so it's like if the simple focus of the breath, and if you're not able to focus on that, you how can we expect you to like focus on the more complex things?
Yeah.
And and I said breath controls the mind controls the body.
Yes.
Because it's like, yeah, I love it because I got into it because Phil Jackson did it.
Oh, cool.
Phil Jackson did it to Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and then I was studying to try to figure out like how do I make a good team, not like super talented, but like I'm trying to make them fall in love with the culture of the team. And like so I was doing like I was mimicking all these things. I was doing meditation, primarily meditation, really.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest game changer and what made us different as a team.
Yeah, I mean I was like always into yoga. I was like dancing, and I was like, meditation, I can do that. And then I tried it and was like, oh my god, this is so hard. Like I would start to like I think I was using Headspace.
Oh, Headspace is great.
Headspace.
Headspace. So this is not a sponsored video, but Headspace. If you see this video, cut me a check. Well, like 10%.
It's something.
And I used Calm, not a sponsored. I used Calm.com for a year, not a paid advertisement, but Calm. You know what to do.
You got a discount on Headspace. So.
No, yeah. So yeah, you're saying.
So anyway, yeah, no, I did try it, and at the beginning, it was so hard.
Even with the guided voice.
Even with the guided voice, I was like still thinking about my own thoughts, and then there's a part where you have your own breathing exercise and you go through it, but I just So when I tried, I was like, oh, I can do 15 minutes, but sitting there 15 minutes. Actually, it's quite intense. So I was like, okay, I'll work my way up. I'll do 5, I'll do 10, and then, eventually. But, I think that's really great. I've been seeing articles, too, about how some schools are now implementing meditation instead of detention.
Yes, I love that.
Why wasn't I a child at that time? But
that kid would be a lot happier versus reprimanded.
Yes, yeah. And having those kind of like coping skills to be like, I'm really angry right now, instead of starting a fight with somebody, is like, well, let me take a break. Let me take a moment, go focus on my breath, take 10 deep breaths, whatever it is they need to do, and then come back in the space, and then they can talk about it and resolve it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we're not really taught, is how to cope.
Yeah.
We just are taught to push through,
yes.
And then sometimes that comes in the form of anger, because because a lot of us relate taking a break as giving up or quitting, and that's like, and we have such an awkward and twisted relationship with failure or giving up or taking a break. It's like, it's really taking a moment to take care of yourself, like literally like a timeout in the middle of a game. I don't know if you like basketball. So like in the middle, like it's literally take like a timeout in the middle of the game. When things are going wrong, you call a timeout.
Yeah.
And like especially like in relationships, timeout. I need to take a walk, whatever.
Exactly.
So and I think it's
this thing called the pause button.
Yeah.
Have you heard of? What is it? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or something. One of them, I think, is like,
you literally pause right here.
Yeah, like you push this. And
I don't remember
pause.
that at all. I gotta reread it. It's been years.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so in regards to self-care, or more rather coping mechanisms, I think it's hard to implement that. Now I remember, is if you're not aware of what's happening. Like when you're angry, like you said, it takes a lot of work to stop in the middle of that intense moment, because you're in that fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
So the coping mechanisms are good. Like, how would you start teaching someone to become self-aware in that intense moment?
I think for that, it's like all of the kind of like psychoeducation you can give somebody before the event happens, right? Like, you talk to them about, maybe you can sit and talk about like what first of all, like, do you have any coping skills or coping mechanisms? And then once they are able to identify those, okay, so these are the things that you can go to. These are your go-tos whenever you feel angry, upset, frustrated, anxious, etc.
These coping mechanisms are either productive or not. Like, sometimes some people cope by punching a wall.
Yes. Okay, so identifying healthy coping mechanisms. Okay. And then from there, it's, I think it's more about finding what works for that person.
Yeah.
Because the therapist or whoever, counselor is helping them in that, they could easily say, well, this is what to do.
Yeah.
But it's more of a question of like, so how can you make this work? Right.
Yeah.
This is your life, right? As the client, like,
so
they need to,
now they
need to figure out. Yes. And if they're motivated enough for change or wanting that, to change, switch their habits up, then, like you said, if they have the motivation to do it themselves or willing to dive into that, then that choice is up to them.
Yeah.
So really, it's just kind of offering.
Yeah.
What can you do? How can you implement this? How do you know? Also, another great thing about dance movement therapy is identifying where in the body you feel what you're feeling. So,
yeah.
right, so like your feelings also affect your body, right?
Yeah.
Psychosomatic symptoms
Yeah.
come up. You know, maybe if, a lot of kids when they're younger, they're like, "Oh, mom, I have a stomach ache. I can't go to school." They might actually be sick, but the reason for that, like the underlying reason, is because they're anxious about, you know, some bully trying to take their lunch or something like that. And so, really,
So-
it does manifest a stomach ache because you're feeling that way. And so,
Wow.
what I've done in the past is during groups, like if they were activated or something, you know, felt triggered, they identify the emotion and then identify where in the body do I feel it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm anxious. Well, what happens when you're anxious? Well, my heart is pounding really fast. That's an indicator of I'm about to get really anxious right now. Or, you know, your palms get sweaty when you're angry, right?
Because like how you bring me up, because I'm like, now I'm thinking about I know which parts, like mine's my chest, and my head gets really pressured,
Yeah.
and I can feel my heart pounding.
Yeah.
That's like the main parts. I can feel my head pounding right now just having to think about it. So
yeah.
I'm like,
come back. Woosah. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I will add this. Something I learned from one of the therapists I've worked with. I catch the time being like 111, 222, 333, 444, 555, all of those times. I see them all the time for some reason. I don't know why. But every time I catch it, I always take a moment to stop whatever I'm doing and take 3 deep breaths.
Huh.
And it's my way of just being like so present and in the moment.
It's almost like, oh yeah, that's a nice little
hack. Throughout the day I'm like constantly knocking off things on my to-do list, running errands, you know, working, like you're moving, all these moving parts. But you know, if I look and I'm constantly looking at the time too, so when I see the time I'm like, oh, like I gotta take this time to take my 3 deep breaths. And I can tell when I'm rushing it too, and I'm like, oh, I'm like in a hurry, I need to get this done. But it's like this discipline to have.
It's like that. I'm thinking like the grandmaster telling their student to like slow down.
Yes.
There's no need to rush. What type of people do you normally work with? Is it just?
Well, right now, so I do work with my special needs program. Let's Dance It Out. Follow us on social media. So I work with developmental disabilities there, and while I don't say it is, it's not a therapy class, it's not dance therapy, we do say that the movement itself is therapeutic. In that program as well, we help to promote social, emotional, and cognitive skills, so there are some overlaps in that.
Yeah.
But so that's a population I work with our program. I've worked with, like I said, the adolescents with dual diagnosis. I've also, right now, am working at a hospital in the behavioral medicine unit doing inpatient psychiatric clients. So, adults, teenagers, teens and adults.
Have you had, like, I guess, dancers join you as well, like, for the therapeutic sessions? Because I almost feel like, my I guess, opinion or judgment, whatever, lack of naivete, whatever, is like I feel like dancers would be judgmental of dance movement therapy because they're dancers.
Oh, wait, what do you mean by judgmental?
Like why do I need to do dance therapy? I'm already a dancer. Like, how does it help me?
Yeah.
If I'm already dancing, you know what I mean?
Right. That's interesting. I would say that it's even more so that they would choose dance therapy because it's something that they're familiar with. Because, I mean, us as dancers know how therapeutic movement can be.
Oh, yeah. Look how young we look.
Yeah.
We're 23, everyone.
So, I mean, for me, like, I mean, I don't want to assume for all the other dancers, but if I were to be like, oh, I'm gonna, I have to do therapy, and I had the option to do verbal or nonverbal, I'm gonna do nonverbal because the dance is something I'm familiar with and that I do. And I have seen some overlaps too. Like there are some teachers that I've taken class from like Gaga. You ever taken those sort of classes?
No, I haven't.
That style is quite interesting, but there's a lot of sort of improv and like finding the body and like really like knowing it kind of inside and out.
Wow.
And there's a lot of that that kind of brings up the authentic movement, and that in itself is healing. I feel like. So yeah, it depends.
I guess for an outsider, what is authentic movement?
Mm. Like genuine movement that comes without any sort of like judgment or intention. Like it's raw.
Yeah.
Whatever comes out comes out.
So,
it's sort of like improv. Like that thing just happens. You don't really have an intent for what you're gonna do, but it flows. It just comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, that's cool. Like I'm aware of like a couple of friends of mine are trying to, uh, not necessarily do a dance therapy thing, but they're trying to do like an event where you just kind of like share your story, and then you kind of read it, but then you interpret it as a dance. So I don't know. Like I'm like almost compelled to like link you guys up because it's like
Please do.
because then you would come from the space of working with people in the therapeutic sense, and they're just doing it so it's an outlet.
Yeah.
So I think that's that combination.
I think the thing with that though is to be careful about what you're evoking in these people, because if you are facilitating, let's say, a group without the therapy background, you're kind of asking your participants to open up a can of worms without them knowing that you're going to be able to close it back.
Oh.
So
see.
That can be. I would just say like proceed with caution in those situations, just because therapy is a very vulnerable place, especially with movement. Like I said, it's like a feels it's a very intense process to go through, and so if you're asking somebody to go somewhere and in a sense process that whatever experience or trauma, whatever that is, you have to be able to know that you're going to be able to hold this space for them, and make sure that they don't leave triggered or dysregulated, and who knows where they're going to go after this. They're going to hop in their car and drive off somewhere. We're in LA, so like somebody's got to have a car, and traffic.
Oh God.
But so it's you want to make sure that if you're going to open the book, you've got to close it at the end as well. I think it's great with what they're trying to do, but
Okay, see, that's the perspective of like someone who doesn't know, the whole area of I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
So like it's, that's why I thought it was cool. Like I also thought like there's got to be something missing, or
or at least provide resources or something that they can do, because that stuff can get really emotional at times. So just to have that extra cushion and the backup, to make sure that they're supported.
Yeah. I mean, because. God, I can only imagine now if things take a wrong turn. I'm jumping to conclusions of worst case scenario.
Well, I mean, it's good to think about that though, because you do want to have all of your what's the word?
Ducks in a row.
Yeah, something like that.
Because it's such essential. What I'm appreciating now that we're older dancers, there's like a level of appreciation for self-care that we didn't have. So that's why I kind of appreciate that they're not only just dance therapists using therapy for our mental health, but there's also dancers. I met up with a b-boy who's now into physical therapy. I love that there are dancers now who are in physical therapy,
yes,
like John.
Same.
That understand how we mess up our bodies in various ways.
Like, fix me.
Yeah. So it's like that guy gave me some great tips to help my lower back and everything.
Oh, good.
So, but yeah, I just love that. I guess the dance community is now going to like somehow helping the rest of the world. We found like this treasure that we found, and we're trying to use it so that regular people can use it and kind of experience the benefits we got as dancers. But now it's like helping them in a different way.
Yeah.
For us, I think it was mainly like like an escape, or
Mm-hmm.
like
Was therapeutic for us.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really was like the hard work, the hell weeks,
Hell months.
hell month. Oh god, you guys had hell months.
Oh, we had the hell years.
What? What's a
Just moving on. No, just kidding.
Dang, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I can imagine how intense rehearsals are, but the product always turned out great in my opinion.
I will admit that, yeah, for sure. So great. I mean, yeah, all of that experience was, everything that I'm taking in with me now and, how I approach life. So it's great.
Yeah, like how. What now? I'm gonna get interested. Like, what would you say to yourself, to your 16-year-old self?
Ooh, my 16-year-old self?
Yeah.
Um, get ready.
Damn.
This is
Get
gonna
ready.
be a ride.
Life's gonna punch you in the face.
Get
Get ready for what?
Just everything that life is gonna throw at you. I did not expect this is where I was gonna be at. I think even being raised in a Filipino family is it's like become a nurse, become a doctor, become a pediatrician, become a lawyer.
Was that
whatever.
your route?
I almost attempted to go to nursing school. My mom was like, be a doctor, be a pediatrician. I wanted to be a pediatrician for the longest time when I was younger, and then I realized how much schooling was, and I was like,
Dad.
So, yeah, completely. But yeah, I had all of these things, but the thing that stayed consistent throughout all of those years was dance. And psychology, it was just, I like learning and like with people, like social interactions. I was always about like, why do people do what we do?
Yeah.
And so I honestly, there's nothing I regret. I don't regret anything about how I got here because this entire path has helped me to shape who I am today, and also helped me to like have that motivation to grab my learning experiences and like translate that into my work and how I work with my clients, and just like in people, my relationships too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for working with you, do you have a regular session, or is it primarily one-on-one right now?
Right now, I mentioned my internship that's at the hospital. I'm working in groups there. And it's very kind of like free form. Like they're able, like we always have those groups, those days, those times. But because it's acute, the patients there aren't there for maybe max like more than 2 weeks. There, so I might see different people every day. Sometimes they don't want to come to group, or sometimes they're kind of in and out. And what I really enjoy about this so far that I've started is that, yes, we do give them the option to self-regulate. If you feel like this is too much being in this group, take time to take a break, and then you can come back when you feel ready.
Yeah.
There's no pressure to be like, no, you have to stay in this room and stay confined.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what dance therapy is. It's like this flow. Like you can't, and what I'm learning, because I'm like a perfectionist and very like organized and like structured, you can have a plan when you go into the session, but know that it can go anywhere.
That sounds like a lot of things
exactly.
in life. Like you have a plan,
so
then shit happens.
Yeah. So it's I think it's that's the part I really like about it, is that there's freedom, and there's essentially no mistakes in that group. Like whatever you do is like your subconscious like really taking you there to do that. Sometimes people do things and they're like, "What? I don't even know why I did that." Right? Like not even like not in just like therapy sessions, but it's like in life. Like sometimes we do things where we're like, "Oh, like I don't know why I did that." But there's something underneath there, right? Like that's trying to get out or whatever. So
yeah. Huh. That's what. Yeah, because I've had those moments, like where an emotion just overwhelms me and it just happens, and I feel like for me, because it's like almost like I wake up from the moment. Like, and I think sometimes it's like I think majority of it has been like from my fits of rage, and I feel like my body is waking up, like I'm aware of what's happening, but like I feel like a veil is coming off,
Yeah.
and then at the same time there's still pressure, and I'm feeling uh, like my body's numb, but wasn't sitting on it.
Mm.
So that those are the moments where I feel like I don't know why I just did that. I just did it.
Yeah.
Like or even when I go into a cipher, sometimes I still get scared freestyling. Like going
Mm.
into cipher. I don't know if you like. It's like going into a freestyle circle or proper term cipher. Is like I still get nervous. I'm like, but when you just jump in, there's that wave, like, and you just do it, and like you have no idea what you just did. You just do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's kind of like the fun, the more productive way of doing it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
No, completely. I agree.
I'm bored with you now. I'm just kidding. I got all the information I wanted. No, luckily, you guys have no idea how comfortable we are right now. We are not. We're being totally Filipino. So. But when it comes for someone who's afraid to start doing therapy, because it's like they're afraid of that judgment. Like, what would you say to them?
Well, I'd probably ask, like, why? What's holding you back? What are you afraid of? What are your fears about this? And I mean, not as the therapist. Like, I wouldn't ask these questions. Like, I mean, obviously that's before they've come to the session, right? If it was a friend, and I was talking to them and they were like, I'm scared to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, I would probably just ask them, like, and maybe they don't need to tell me what it is, but like maybe for themselves, like, what is it really that you're afraid of? And then tackle those thoughts with, like, facts or things objectively, like what's really happening. And all, not most, but like I know for myself, like I was pretty scared, just because, it's like I said before, it takes you to a very vulnerable place. And not everybody wants to go there. Not everybody wants to feel all their feelings. People cry and they're like trying to stop their tears from falling, like, or they, they go to a different room to cry, which is, I mean, do what you do, but it's also like, why is that also another, like, social construct that crying is a bad thing?
Yeah.
Stop crying, like, don't cry.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, and it's all these sayings, I think, that are really influencing us, and we may not know it, but like these voices are constantly being repeated in our head. That's not even our own voice.
Yeah.
But it drives us to guilt. It drives us to shame. It drives us to feeling bad about ourselves for something that's so natural. You should be crying just as much as you should be laughing.
Yeah.
Like all of these things, like they have their polarities, but that's what makes us human in the end.
Yeah, I think I definitely like vibe with that, with being okay to cry. I used to um, be. I remember in high school or college. I remember I was so angry at my friends because I discovered that they were doing drugs. And it wasn't weed. It was worse. And I felt such a deep betrayal. And I remember telling myself I'm going to be so cold and all that, try not to cry, show an emotion, but it was like I just became angry as fuck all the time.
Yeah.
So and it takes I've noticed is that it takes a lot more effort to stay angry than just to be like relaxed and happy.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, they're here, I got to stay mad at them.
Right.
Versus like being forgiving. And forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. I think that's like it's not being weak. It's like it's for your own peace of mind.
Yeah.
So really, and then that took me a long time to get because I was holding it against them and they didn't know it. And then I just carried that on. But yeah.
Something that really sticks with me is that the fact that anger is actually a secondary emotion.
Yes, that's what I learned from. You're the second person I've ever heard say that.
Really?
Yeah, the first person was my anger management therapist.
Oh yeah. So.
Yes.
Will be $75. No, just kidding. Oh, God, all right, you're on check. I'm totally kidding. No, I think it's a great thing for everybody to
PayPal
know.
link. I'm just kidding.
Link below. It's so good to acknowledge that and to know that because really when we become angry, that's not the first thing that we're feeling. There's something else underneath that, whether it was disappointment, sadness, fear,
Yes.
like worried, um, betrayed, all of these things. But anger is kind of like what seems like the easiest to access because it's just so quick and so passionate and
Yeah.
and also the stigmas of like you're not allowed to be weak,
Yeah.
because crying is weak and you can't do that,
Yeah.
right? um, or even just like being the bigger person, like why does it take so much of it for us to be
It's a
like,
lot of effort.
actually, when you really yeah, I'm a Leo and I'm stubborn as hell, so I kind of like, I feel like I have to deal with that all the time in myself to be like, no, just calm down.
Yeah, dude. Like when I heard that, that was like one of my biggest breakthroughs. I'm like, that because then I started like questioning like, what's the underlying motion of my anger this time?
Yeah.
Like, what am I afraid of? Is it because I'm afraid of, some of the things I get triggered on is like my time being wasted. Like, because I'm very protective of my time. My schedule, my schedule is like from 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Like this was on my schedule. Like I sent you the Google invite. This was
Yeah.
on my schedule.
Yeah.
I'm like, I had to make sure this is time blocked. Um, so like that's one of the things. Another one is like if I'm losing time spending time with family, like if or I just don't like a lot of my triggers really are coming from, um, I think just from my current awareness is wasting time because I'm hyper aware that I don't get it back. It's like
I'm gonna leave you with a question, and I don't
okay.
want you to answer it right now, but whose voice in your head are you hearing? That you need to have, you need to be organized, you need to have this time structure, you need to have this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's your own. Maybe it's
I think it's something I imposed on myself, um, when I started reading more books on like building your own business, and then being that time is your most valuable non-renewable
being
resource.
meticulous about that. Yeah.
So and then I used to be very hyper protective of it, where I would be very easily like it was worse. Like this is what got me in trouble. I landed in jail, got me to 52 weeks of everything.
Yeah.
So um, so that's where like it's been a process, but I've been I when it's my time and I put it together, like for me to do work, I get to be intentional, but I also have learned to be a lot more flexible. That shit fucking happens.
Yeah.
Like today, I had like I was gonna work on these certain things, and actually I ended up pushing it in the afternoon because a prospect called, and I'm like, okay, now I have a pitch meeting.
Yeah.
So okay, everything got jumbled around in the afternoon. So I was like, okay, whatever. It's like if things, at least I got one thing done.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be all done. Just one thing to move forward. An inch is an inch.
Oh yeah, that's great. I've definitely had those times. I've broken down in my car because I was so adamant about these are the things I need to get done today, and I probably only did one, but like really like treated myself like not not compassionately at all. I don't know what the other word for that is, but yeah. So that's quite interesting. I like to call that like structured improv. It's like you have an idea of where you want to go, but it's also like able to be maneuvered and
like one of my favorite sayings is like from Tony Robbins. I think is like be attached to the goal but be flexible in getting there.
Yes,
because it's like if being rigid is like just means you're not making room for possibility or growth
or opportunities
or even more importantly the people who love you.
Yeah,
because it's like if you don't if because I think one of the things that I think really woke me up is when I was over prioritizing work and my son needed to go to the doctor. And his mom was like, "It's breaking my heart that you're prioritizing work. Then bring him to the doctor to get checked in." And I'm like, "No shit." So
that's great communication though.
Like,
instead of like, you are not prioritizing this, you're not doing this, da da da. Like blame.
Way before we even like decided to just be co-parents. Like we went to a lot of couples therapy and a lot of individual therapy. We were like very very much on the same page of trying to be good communicators.
Good, yeah.
Which is I'm very grateful for because now we can display that to Jordan to be good at communicating. And he's such like a like off on a tangent now. Like he's such a like a sweet little boy. Like his mom recently had gone to a car accident and her back was hurting,
Oh, okay.
and he like lifted her face and said, "It's okay, mom. We got this. I love you."
Oh
I'm
my
like, we didn't
god.
teach you that, but she's yeah, like
Oh, that's
it's
really great.
yeah, and like I think it's like one of my goals. Like I think that's what one of, becoming a dad woke me up in having to learn how to manage my emotions better,
Yeah.
because I used to think controlling your emotions meant stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like more rather than I've learned, it's like learning how to be calm in the middle of the storm, kind of thing.
Santosha. I literally just had this yoga class the other
Santosha.
day. Santosha. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. It's like it's exactly that, like staying calm in the midst of chaos. Like there's so much happening, but being able to find like that zen for yourself
Yes.
throughout all of that. Yeah.
Is that Is that a what is Is that like a religious practice? Or what is?
I think it's just from yoga
Oh
practices.
yes.
Yeah. So
Oh wow. Because I always called it stoicism. Like
stoicism.
there's a practice a philosophy called stoicism. The common misconception of stoicism is like you're stoic, you're cold, you're detached.
Uh-huh.
That's like the misconception, because the Stoics have a high priority of being even keeled, and their focus is always on what they can control, not on external
Oh.
circumstances.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's one, and it was the my favorite comparison of it is if the Zen Buddhist was the quiet monk in the beautiful mountains, the Stoic is the calm man in the middle of chaos. Because
Oh, okay.
like the Stoicism was adapted by emperors in the Roman times, so they can learn how to. Like one of the most famous ones is Marcus Aurelius.
Mm.
He was a Stoic. He always kept reminding himself like you like he hired someone to always tell him, remember you're only human.
Oh, wow.
Like that
He
was his only
hired
job.
somebody for that.
Yeah.
He had one job.
Yeah. You're only human. Grapes. But yeah, that's what I love about Stoicism. It's like it's because it's one thing to go to a retreat, feel all the rah rah and feel calm, and then you're thrown back into the chaos.
Exactly.
And how do you
it's like,
implement
how am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Bring this over to this? Yeah.
So that's what fascinated me about Stoicism is like, um, they're very. Some people would say pessimistic, but it's like I think they ground it in these can happen.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite sayings, like their old saying is like, yeah, I'll take a ship to make it to the other island, unless it sinks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that, there's the goal, but unless things happen too.
Right.
So
Right.
like one of my favorite things that they did, I mentioned this in a previous podcast, is that they do things called there's something called fear setting.
Mm-hmm.
Not fear setting, is it?
That sounds familiar.
I think it's called it's fear setting. So whereas goals, we set the goals. Here's how we're gonna do it. Fear setting is like, here's what I'm afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario, but you write things down how you recover from it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's very much the whole Yoda thing. Like define your fears and you can conquer it.
Well, that's the same thing with anxiety. They're fear thoughts, right?
Yeah.
What if? What if? What if? Like
Yeah.
it's all these things, but like it's trying to battle that of like objectively what is happening here, because you're starting to think about something that's happening in the future instead of what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And so I mean I suffer from anxiety a lot too, so I think that's like what I've I know that's what I've been working on a lot, is like making sure that whatever is happening in this moment, like I'm only using that information instead of the what ifs. And also, like if you're thinking about the what ifs, what if it, and usually those are fear based, so it's negative. What if this negative outcome happens? Also, well, what if the positive
is true?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the whole. Yeah, because I honestly used to be socially anxious. Like
Still am.
For I'd go out and I would always think people were judging. Usually because in elementary school I had really puffy Bruce Lee hair and I was teased a lot for it. And it's Bruce Lee, but I was still like getting laughed at. So when I grew up thinking like in high school and college, people were judging me because of my hair. And what I did was I started I went on a mission to learn how to talk to girls, because I was super like, because one other catalyst for that was my friends would end up dating the new girl in the social circles. Like, man, I don't want to date anyone in the same circle.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I gotta learn how to do things on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured, tackle two birds with one stone. So what I did was go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night with friends to learn how to talk to girls, deal with that anxiety,
exposure therapy.
I guess so. And then get a shit ton of no's, but eventually start experiencing the wins.
Yeah.
Like okay, the first step was ask what time it was. It's so like easy, but when you're consciously having to do it instead of needing to do it, it's like it's scarier. Or okay, next thing is hold a conversation for 5 minutes, or learn to get their number, or learn how to talk not to just one person. How do you manage talking to a group? How do you it was a massive, like, really like immersed learning experience, and it definitely helped me out, not just like talking, getting more confident, obviously talking to girls, but it helped me be more carefree of other people's opinions, because at one point I broke, like, in the middle of everything. It's like I just thought, no one gives a shit what the fuck I'm doing right now. Like, true. And that's the freedom I got. I'm like, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
And then I started saying more ridiculous things, more vulgar things. So this is like when we see her, so I say the most ridiculous shit ever. Yep. Mm-hmm. So like that's kind of like what led to it, because most of the time people are too busy in their own heads to truly give a shit about the stupid things you're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was like, and even now, just thinking about it, I still feel that relief and that freedom, because I don't know, I feel like I witness a lot of people that are too afraid to act because of they value other people's opinions over their own more.
Yeah. What is it? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes. Who's that? Not Michael Jordan? No, it's not. Someone.
Whoever comments on this.
Yes. Comment, put it down. You'll get a hug.
From the both of us.
All right, so let's start wrapping it up. Yeah. I'm going to ask you like a couple... I'm going to try to do a rapid fire question, but it's like off the top of my heads.
Okay.
My heads.
Yeah, all of them.
All of them. Okay, first one. What would you do with $1 million?
Ooh, I would establish all of my priorities and ration out what I would do with that money.
I can imagine you like getting all of it. I'm like,
okay, so I have this for you, and this for you. I mean, plenty of things. I'm in this helping field because I want to help people like live in our shitty ass society at times. And actually, one of my goals is to actually. I said actually twice. One of my goals is to actually travel with a group of healers at some point, and cool. Just offer workshops, offer opportunities in different countries, and just give them that sort of like experience to see what these sort of like therapies are like. So I don't know. Maybe I'll use some of the money for that.
Yeah. All right. What is something? What do you call it? What's your current playlist for working out?
Ooh, for working out, I really like tropical house music. Oh. I think there might be a playlist on Spotify.
Tropical house.
Yeah. Because it's like upbeat, keeps you moving.
Yeah.
I think there's a playlist on Spotify. Most of the time, I just put it on like my library on shuffle, and then just kind of
let it go.
Yeah.
What's something you dislike that everyone would kind of hate you for?
Pineapple on pizza.
Okay, I'm a recent convert of that. Honestly,
okay.
Like I thought it was the stupidest thing ever, but
yeah.
I tried it. The sweetness with the I don't know if you ever tried it, but it's pretty good.
Wait, what?
With the pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty. Have you eaten it?
Wait, didn't you say it's something that you like that other people would hate you for?
Yeah. No, I used to be on your boat, on your side.
I love pineapple on pizza.
Oh, you do? Okay. I thought. Sorry. I
that the
switched it
question
around.
you
Yes.
asked?
Yeah. I twisted it. I'm sorry, everyone. So that's right. Okay. We both like the same thing.
Yes. Okay, I was like,
I totally messed that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
With banana peppers. I'll have banana peppers on that too.
Oh,
Pineapple,
I had banana.
Canadian bacon,
Oh.
banana peppers. If there's basil, gotta add some greens.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, greens. It's gonna make it healthier.
Make me feel better at least.
Okay. What's one random thing people don't know that you are able? Or one random thing about you.
One random thing about me. I kind of think a lot of people know this, but I can binge watch crazily, like a lot. Like I will finish seasons in days.
Oh my god, you're like a hermit.
I will literally, if I'm so invested in the show, I'll kind of like shun everybody else out of my world and watch it.
No one exists.
And sometimes I'll even make my friends watch it, like if they come over and I'll be like,
"Oh, you'll
put
be
this
like,
on.
hey, let's hang out." Just kidding. We're gonna watch this shit.
Yeah,
like,
but I'm never gonna tell them that.
it's a fucking trap. Okay. Last question, and I think this question was inspired by another podcast called School of Greatness.
Okay.
And I love this question. You're on your deathbed.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. No, I'm just kidding. So you're on your deathbed. Everything your work is gone.
Okay.
There's no more internet. It's post-apocalyptic.
Okay.
You know. And you're given a piece of paper, a pen and paper, to write down 3 pieces of advice to help people to their success. What would that be?
3 things?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. There's so many to choose from, but I would say you are enough. I would say invest in doing something that you love. And lastly, be kind to yourself.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. So, where can people find you online to stalk you?
Find me online.
Yeah.
So I'm on Facebook, Vicki Mae Alvarez. Instagram, my personal is Vicki Mae, Vixmae. My Let's Dance It Out account is Let's_Dance It Out. I don't really want to give you my Twitter, but
Dang. She spills all the tea there.
All the tea.
All right, so that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of Emeroy TV, Vision Paradox TV, Move, Groove, Grow podcast. If you guys got any particular questions, feel free to hit her up, especially with the dance movement therapy. If you guys are in the LA area, make sure you guys please check it out. Therapy is an amazing thing. I know some of you might have a little bit of resistance to it. It's helped me out. It's helped her out. And
whenever you're ready.
Yeah, whenever you're ready. Do it now. Do it now. Peer pressure. All right, thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure you hit like, subscribe, share this with friends who you think might benefit from it. And other than that, I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, week, month. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Bye.